What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics. Today we got a reaction to Buddy Holly's top 10 songs, brought to us by friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, it is so greatly appreciated. Check out the Patreon link below or the patron link on the Instagram. We could not do it without the patrons. All right, obviously I know who Buddy Holly is. I mean, we've done a little bit of Holly, nothing like this. I lived in or around Clovis, New Mexico for probably 6-7 years, where he did some of his recording. Lubbock, where he's from, I lived there for almost 5 years. Never went to the museum, never went to the studio. It was still there at that time, years ago, in Clovis, New Mexico, because I just wasn't into, I was into popular music, not old music. Now, I surely wished I would have went, and I haven't been back there in a couple decades. But I tell you all this to tell you, I'm talking deep into Buddy Holly. I knew he's a quote, rock and roll pioneer and influence and all the stuff with the Beatles and all that stuff, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I had no idea, man, the acclaim and the innovation that this guy had. And I mean, he died when he was 22 years old. That's insane. So it's going to be a little longer intro for me than usual. I'm still going to put quick facts below, but it's going to be a little longer. It's not going to be horribly long, but man, you may not know, and maybe you do, but if you don't know, you should know. So here we go. Buddy Holly was an American singer and songwriter who was a central and pioneering figure of mid-1950s rock and roll. He was born to a musical family in Lubbock, Texas during the Great Depression, learned to play guitar and sing alongside his siblings. His style was influenced by gospel music, country music, and rhythm and blues acts, which he performed in Lubbock with his friends from high school. He made his first appearance on local television in 1952 in Lubbock. In the following year, he formed the group Buddy and Bob with his friend Bob Montgomery. In 1955, after opening for Elvis Presley, he decided to pursue a career in music. He opened for Presley 3 times that year. They were all in Lubbock. I looked it up. His band style shifted from country and western to entirely rock and roll. I think Elvis would do that to you, right? In October that year, when Holly opened for Bill Haley and his Comets, he was spotted by Nashville scout Eddie Crandall, who helped to get him a contract with Decca Records. His recording sessions at Decca were produced by Owen Bradley. He would become famous for producing orchestrated country hits for stars like Patsy Cline. Unhappy with Bradley's musical style and control in the studio, Holly went to producer Norman Petty in Clovis, New Mexico, which Clovis is only about 100 miles from Lubbock. So he's in Nashville. You want to be a little closer to home. I can see that. He recorded a demo of That'll Be the Day, among other songs. We're going to get into a big story of that later. I don't want to spoil it, but that song may be on the top 10. He became the band's manager, Petty did, and sent the demo to Brunswick Records, which releases a single credited to The Crickets, which became the name of Holly's band. I'll get into why they did that later. In September of 57, as the band toured, That'll Be the Day topped the US and UK singles charts. Its success was followed in October by another major hit, Peggy Sue. The album The Chirping, in parentheses, Crickets, released in 1957, reached number 5 on the UK albums chart. When we go over this chart success, it's crazy. He's kind of like Elvis. Elvis had major success in the States too, where I'm, but Buddy was a bigger star in the UK than he was in the US. Holly made his second appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show in January of 58, and soon after toured Australia and then the UK. In early 1959, he assembled a new band consisting of future country music star Waylon Jennings, who played bass. Waylon was a DJ in Lubbock who Buddy knew, and Buddy actually produced a couple of Waylon's songs early on. I also had famed session musician Tommy Allsup on guitar and Carl Bunch on drums, and embarked on a tour of the Midwestern U.S. After a show in Clear Lake, Iowa, Holly chartered an airplane to travel to his next show in Moorhead, Minnesota. Soon after takeoff, the plane crashed, killing Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and pilot Roger Peterson, in a tragedy later referred to by Don McLean as the day that music died, and in his song American Pie, also the focal point of the 1987 movie La Bamba, about Richie Valens with Lou Diamond Phillips doing a great job. I saw that movie in the theater. I watched it again about 5 years ago. It's a great show, man. And by the way, Waylon Jennings gave up his seat to the Big Bopper because the Big Bopper had the flu. Some people say it was a coin flip. No, it was a coin flip with Richie Valens and another band member, which you see in the movie, but sometimes I see this, weirdly put a different way. When people retrospectively remembering that Waylon gave up his seat for Richie, he gave it up for the Big Bopper. During his short career, Holly wrote and recorded many songs. He's because they continued releasing new material for almost a decade after he passed away. He's often regarded as the artist who defined the traditional rock and roll lineup of 2 guitars, a bass, and drums. He was a major influence on later popular musical artists. I'm going to get into this more in a minute, including Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, the Hollies, Elvis Costello, Dave Edmunds, Marshall Crenshaw, and Elton John. All Music defined him as the single most influential creative force in early rock and roll. Rolling Stone ranked him number 13 on their 100 greatest artists, and in 2023, they ranked him 74 on the list of 200 greatest singers of all time. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame included Buddy on their inaugural class in 1986, and here's what they said on his entry. They remarked upon the large quantity of material he produced during his short musical career and said it, quote, made a major and lasting impact on popular music. It called him an innovator for writing his own material, his experimentation with double tracking, and the use of orchestration. He's also said to have, quote, pioneered and popularized the now standard use, as I talked about, 2 guitars, bass, and drums by rock bands. The Songwriters Hall of Fame inducted Howie in 1986 and said his contributions changed the face of rock and roll. He developed, in collaboration with some Petty, techniques of overdubbing and reverb while he used innovative instrumentation later implemented by other artists. Here's just a little bit of the artist, right? The Beatles obviously took their name from the Crickets. They met Buddy back in 58, and I'm going to get their first demo was one of Buddy's songs. And Paul McCartney, and he has forever owned the publishing rights to all of Buddy's songs. Bob Dylan once stated on January 31st, 1959, 2 nights before Buddy's death, 17-year-old Dylan attended Buddy's performance in Duluth and said he was 3 feet away from him, and that what the influence he had on him. The Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger saw Howie performing in Woolwich, London during a tour of the UK. He particularly remembered Howie's performance of Not Fade Away, a song that also inspired Keith Richards, who modeled his early guitar playing on the track. The Rolling Stones had a hit version of the song in 1964. Richards later said Howie passed it on via the Beatles and via the Rolling Stones. He's in everybody. Eric Clapton said the Chirping Crickets was the first album he ever bought. He later saw Buddy on Sunday night at the London Palladium. In his autobiography, Clapton recounted the first time he saw Howie in his Fender, saying, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was like seeing an instrument from outer space, and I said to myself, that's the future, that's what I want. Elton John was musically influenced by Howie. At age 13, he did not require them, but he started wearing horn-rimmed glasses to imitate Howie. And Bruce Springsteen, back in August of 1978, so around the Darkness of the Edge of Town tour, in an interview with Rolling Stone, he said, I play Buddy Howie every night before I go on. That keeps me honest. You talk about a guy who just absolutely had influence in some of the biggest artists in rock history. I just laid it out for you. And there's many more. I just try to keep it brief. But if you've never done this before, the music will not be in the video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. So click on that and follow along with us. And I know some of these songs. I definitely don't know all of them. We've got number 10, It Doesn't Matter Anymore. It's off the Buddy Holly Story album in 1959, released a month after his death. There was only one proper album released when he was alive, so I'm really not going to be giving you too many album credits. The single was released in January 1959, less than a month before his death. Went to 13 in the U.S. It was his last top 20 hit and featured U.S. top 20 hit and featured the orchestral backing of Dick Jacobs. It was also successful in the UK, where it became the country's first posthumous number 1 hit. In other words, number 1 hit of someone who had already passed away. Number 1 in Canada and Ireland, number 2 in Australia. It was recorded in mid-October 1958 in New York City. The great Paul Anka wrote it specifically for Buddy, and then he donated the royalties from the song to Howie's wife. He said, it doesn't matter anymore, has a tragic irony about it now, but at least it will help look after Buddy Howie's family. I'm giving my composer's royalty to his widow. It's the least I can do. It's been covered many times by other artists like Linda Ronstadt, and most commercially successful by New Zealand-born singer-songwriter Mark Williams, who had a number 1 hit with it in 1977. All right, I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Richard. It Doesn't Matter Anymore. It's really well done. The orchestration on here, way ahead of its time. His singing, his singing style, he's got that kind of hiccup singing style that's very unique. And I think it really helped him after he had passed away, and the influence on people, just how unique he was. But really good song. I had never heard this one. Next up, we got Oh Boy, off the only album he did, The Chirping Crickets in 1957, written by Sonny West, Bill Tillman, and Norman Petty. 10 in the US, 3 in the UK. It was originally recorded as a demo by Sonny West as All My Love, Oh Boy, in parentheses, at Norman Petty Studios in Clovis, New Mexico in early 1957. Petty presented West's demo to Buddy Holly with the intention of Holly recording the song. Years later, in 2019, on BBC's Classic Album Series, West said, I had a decision to make whether or not I wanted to do it myself, and I said, no, I want Buddy to do it. It can't hurt anything, and if it didn't work, I'd just go back and do it myself someday. It was subsequently recorded by Buddy and the Crickets in late June of 1957, with Holly singing lead vocals and the Picks providing backing vocals. West has stated that Holly made a small change to the original lyrics of the song. He said, I said, all my love and all my kissing, you're going to see what you've been missing. And Buddy's verse is all my love and all my kissing, you don't know what you're missing. He said, I have no idea why he changed it. Maybe he had more punch that way. Okay, I for sure knew that song. I just wasn't thinking that's what this song was, right? I knew this song, but going into it, I didn't know that. But fantastic song and a different singing style. Right? He really got after it there. You felt his power there within the great backing vocals in there. Oh boy. And you know, he gives the instruments a little time to breathe, even though, I mean, all these songs are short. The song's 2 minutes, 9 seconds. But boy, that's one thing I like about these songs from the 50s, right, and early 60s. They were short, but they packed in a ton of lyrics, man. They didn't waste any time. Like, they just got after it, man. Good choice for number 9. Now, we'll stay on that Chirping Crickets album for number 8, Maybe Baby, from, of course, 1957, written by Buddy and Norman Petty, the producer. The single released in January 58 and credited to the Crickets was, I'll get into that in a little while why that was the case, went to 17 in the US, 4 in the UK, and number 9 in Canada. Maybe Baby, had never heard that one. Very catchy, man. Once again, it's 2 minutes long, man. I mean, tons of lyrics. I'm cruising through this. I mean, they're not complicated lyrics because they weren't supposed to be back then, but they still tell you a great story, right? But he sounded great, really well put together. Like the backing vocalists on there. Let's go to our number 7 song, Heartbeat. It was originally recorded by Bob Montgomery and credited to Norman Petty. It was recorded most famously by Buddy Holly, of course, in 1958. It reached the UK top 10 twice, once in 1975 for Show a Daddy Waddy. I don't know if that's, I've never heard. At number 7, and again in 1992 for Nick Berry. Recorded as a theme to the television series Heartbeat, and it reached a number 2. It always helps when you're a television. Back in the day, not now. Not enough people watch any one show, but if you had the theme song, you were great. It was the second to last of Holly's singles to be released during his lifetime. Minor hit in the U.S., only reaching number 82. Come on, U.S. All right, Heartbeat is another really well done tune, man. He takes you on a journey in 2 minutes, man. It really is amazing. I don't mean to keep going on with it, but it's so rare, right? We have so much stuff that I reviewed where, you know, bands are popping out 6-minute songs, and Buddy can do it in about 2 minutes, or under 2 minutes slightly, as we get in our next song, Words of Love. Written by Buddy, released this single in 1957. He harmonized with himself by combining tape recordings of each part. This is what we're talking about the studio innovation. The song was not a notable hit for him, although it is regarded as one of his most important recordings. And if you know your Beatles history, we have more Beatles videos up than any. There's probably 80, maybe, videos of the Beatles up. They recorded a version of it, of course, on Beatles for Sale or on Beatles 6 in the US. They had been playing it for years, though, before that. This one's just attributed to Buddy. Now, some of these were just attributed to Buddy. When you go back on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you use, it's almost all going to say Buddy Holly and the Crickets. But they had a reason why they had to go solo on some of the stuff, which I'll get into once we get into our number 2 song. So well done, a little different arrangement than some of these other ones. And man, Buddy could change up his singing style based on the song, right? And I read that later on, like, you know, before he died, he'd plan on doing some R&B albums and collaborating with some people and those sorts of things because he had moved to New York. That's why him and the Crickets, well, they broke up, and it was a fine break. They weren't mad at each other. The Crickets just wanted to stay home, and he ended up moving to New York, but he was exploring all these different styles that he wanted to do. He was going to acting classes. Like, Buddy could have been a real Renaissance man, but you see it on the different styles on these songs. Now we're to the top 5. We got Raining in My Heart, recorded in October of 1958 at the Pythian Temple on West 70th Street in New York City, with the orchestral backing by Dick Jacobs. Music and lyrics are written by the songwriting team of Felice Bryant and Boudoir Bryant. It was released as a single on Coral Records in 1959. Only went to 88. Leo Sayer, years later, did a version that was limited chart success, had some success on the adult contemporary chart. So if you're of a certain age, you may know that version. A really well done song that's different than anything we've heard, right? It's the orchestral backing by Dick Jacobs. Like, fantastic. So a more mature offering, not that the other songs are immature, but what I mean is like a more refined, it could have been something in one way that was like in a Disney cartoon in that time because of the orchestral backing, the way it was coming in with the effects, yet more mature than that. And it just shows you like just singing straight up, like how great his voice really was. Now we get up to number 4. We got Every Day, written by Buddy and Norman Petty, recorded by Buddy and the Crickets in May of 1957. It was released as the B-side of Peggy Sue. The single went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It's ranked number 238 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And I know this song very well because I love this show called Welcome to Wrexham. And this was the theme song for most of season 1, which I binge watched when it came out. And then I binge watched it again before season 2. And so this song was just running through my head because it comes on at the beginning. So I don't think I've ever actually listened to the whole song. So here we go. All right. I mean, great song. Like I said, I'm familiar with it. So he does the little hick, the hey, 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 like that comes in on this song, but it hasn't come in on the last several songs. But yeah, I mean, I like this song so much. Norman Petty's playing the Celesta on this as an additional musician on this. Well, next up is this an iconic song, Peggy Sue. Recorded and released as a single by Buddy Holly on September 20th, 1957. The Crickets are not mentioned on the label of the single, but band members Joe B. Malden on string bass and Jerry Allison on drums played on the recording. The song was originally entitled Cindy Lou after Holly's niece, the daughter of his sister Pat Holly Cater. The title was later changed to Peggy Sue in reference to Peggy Sue Guerin, then girlfriend and future wife of Jerry Allison, the drummer for the Crickets, after the couple had temporarily broken up. In her memoir, Whatever Happened to Peggy Sue, Guerin stated that she first heard the song in a live performance in 1957 and that she was, quote, so embarrassed I could have died. Appropriately, Allison had a prominent role in the production of the song, playing paradiddles on the drums throughout the song, the drum sound rhythmically fading in and out as a result of real-time engineering techniques by Norman Petty. Initially, only Allison and Petty were listed as the song's authors. At Allison's insistence, Holly was credited as a co-writer after his death. It was his second hit single, reaching the top 10 in the US, Canada, the UK, the Netherlands, and Germany. It was Holly's first hit not credited to his band, the Crickets. It ranked 194 on Billboard Magazine's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. In 1999, National Public Radio, NPR, included the song on the NPR 100, list of the 100 most important musical works of the 20th century. It was inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum included the song on the list of the songs that shaped rock and roll. So, in other words, the song has insane acclaim. He did write a sequel, Peggy Sue Got Married, and recorded a demo version of it in his apartment in December of 1958, accompanied only by himself on the guitar. It was discovered after his death, like several other ones, and was enhanced for commercial release with the addition of backing vocals and electric guitar tracks that drowns out his playing and almost drowns out his voice. The rarely heard original version was released on a vinyl collection, The Complete Buddy Holly. All right, Peggy Sue, just a classic, as I talked about in the intro. Now, I read in a couple different places, but I mean, I hate putting this stuff out here, but I mean, you know, Buddy's been gone for a very long time. Now, there is some speculation that Buddy and Peggy Sue, that Buddy had wanted her to be with him, that he was about to divorce his wife, but that, you know, she didn't do it, obviously. But that's another sordid story I won't get into, but it is interesting. It puts a song in a little different light, if that is correct. All right, 2 songs left. A lot of people probably have this as number 1. That'll Be the Day. This is where we're going to get into the story of why these things are like attributed to Buddy or Buddy and the Crickets or just the Crickets. This one was written by Buddy and Jerry Allison, first recorded by Buddy Holly and the 3 Tunes in 1956, and re-recorded in 57 by him and his new band, of course, the Crickets. The 1957 recording achieved widespread success. His producer, Norman Petty, was credited as a co-writer, although he did not contribute to the composition. A lot of that went on back in the day. He was inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1998. Many other versions have been recorded. It was the first song recorded as a demo by the Quarrymen, a little Liverpool skiffle group that eventually evolved into the Beatles, and they did that all the way back in 1958. In June of 56, Buddy, along with his older brother Larry, as well as Allison and Sonny Curtis, went to see the film The Searchers, starring John Wayne, in which Wayne repeatedly used the phrase, "That'll be the day." This line of dialogue inspired the young musicians. It was first recorded, as I told you, by Buddy and the Tunes for Decca Records in Nashville in July of 1956. Decca, displeased with Holly's 2 previous singles, did not issue recordings from this session. After the song was re-recorded by the Crickets in 1957 and became a hit, Decca released the original recording as a single in September of 1957. So released the same song, just a slightly different version, because that's the way we did it in the 50s. Now, Buddy's contract with Decca prohibited him from re-recording any of the songs recorded in that 1956 Nashville session for 5 years. So even though they didn't want to release it, they said, you can't release it. To evade this restriction, Norman Petty credited the Crickets, and only the Crickets, as the artist on this re-recording for Brunswick Records. Brunswick was a subsidiary of Decca, so it gets all complicated, right? Once this kind of hit, Decca re-signed Buddy to another one of its subsidiaries, Coral Records, so he ended up with 2 recording contracts. Recordings with the Crickets were issued on Brunswick, and recordings under his name only were recorded on Coral, although the Crickets still played on several of those, but they couldn't be attributed to them. Confused yet? I had to read a bunch of stuff on this. The second recording of the song was made in February 57, 7 months after the first, in Clovis by Norman Petty. This version on the debut album by the Crickets, the Chirping Crickets, was made with everyone performing and without additional overdubs. This is number 39 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, and went to number 1 in the US and the UK. That'll Be the Day, probably his most famous recording. I don't know, I would think so, but you Buddy Holly fans and people who are around near that time are going to know better than me, but just a fantastic song, right? Peggy Sue, he got that vocal effect, his style in there. But this one, man, he just sung it straight up. But, you know, That'll Be the Day When I Die was kind of played a lot, I read, when he died. And one of the interesting things when he died, you know, he died late at night, about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So the next day, his wife, Maria, was watching the news on TV. And that's when she first heard that he died. And she ended up having a miscarriage the next day. His mom heard it on the radio. Somewhere, if you've seen the movie La Bamba, when the mom hears that Richie died on the radio. But this prompted the law, basically, that you can't share that someone's died until you've informed their family members. So I thought that was kind of crazy, too. All right, number 1, you see it below, True Love Ways. His originals were recorded with the Dick Jacobs Orchestra in October of 1958. 4 months before his death, that was the last recording sessions he ever did. Released as a single in 1960, went to number 25 in the UK. His widow, Maria, claimed that the song was written for her as a wedding gift. All right, Richard's number 1 Buddy Holly song, True Love Ways. All right, True Love Ways, Richard's number 1 Buddy Holly song. That song was beautiful. Like, I didn't know until I did this top 10 Buddy had these kind of songs with the orchestra backing in there and his voice without really getting into it and just singing this song. Like, it's fantastic. It's fantastic, man. It's beautiful. A great choice for number 1. Obviously, I wasn't familiar with it, so it's the first time I heard it. So it's not my, quote, favorite song on here because you know what it's like. Familiarity breeds likability, usually, unless it's just overplayed. But it's fantastic. So that's going to take me to my favorite tracks. I mean, every track on here is great, but we'll go honorable mentions. Maybe Baby. Maybe that's it. My faves are going to be Oh Boy, Words of Love, Every Day, Peggy Sue, That'll Be the Day, and True Love Ways. I liked all the other songs too. I just didn't want to pick 10 songs for you. I appreciate Richard bringing this one to us and putting this thing together. And for my education of just getting into this, I know I gave you guys more info than I do a lot of times in these videos, but I don't just want to sit here and react to this. I actually take this seriously, right? And Buddy is such a pioneer of musical history and of rock and roll, and I just didn't realize it. So I thought I would share a little bit of what I learned with you. So tell me what your favorite tracks are down below. What are your top 5, or what else would you have had on this list? But be nice. It's hard to put a top 10 together. Richard did a great job. And until next time, guys, I will see you.